On today's episode of Locked On Stars, we'll tell you tonight's roster ahead of preseason game number 2 against the Wild. They continue to shuffle line combinations up front, and some exciting news from a member of the Dallas Stars Prospect Games.
You're Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans. I'm Joey Erickson, former producer of 105 through the Fan. Please be sure to subscribe. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And as always, thank you so much for making us a part of your day and making us your first listen. Welcome to a Tuesday edition of Locked On Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. And if you could not already have heard, yes, I'm currently inside an ice rink. The Super Rink in Blaine, Minnesota, the Corpus Christi Ice Rays are practicing currently. So we're going to rip off a podcast. I apologize for any of the sound effects of pucks hitting glass and all that good stuff as well. But we got preseason action once again tonight. Dallas Stars taking on the Minnesota Wild at the American Airlines Center. Puck drop is at 7 o'clock, and this is going to be a great game for those of you that are going to go to downtown Dallas and get a chance to see the Stars in action for the first time, maybe the second time if you went the other night against St. Louis, but a veteran-heavy lineup for the Stars. So they're going to trot out some of their big boys, which is really, really exciting, and we get our first real look of maybe a new era of Dallas Stars hockey. It's not, of course, the entire roster, but we'll go ahead and kind of dive into the line combinations and what we can expect tonight against the Wild. But here is your preseason roster. We'll start with the forwards. So Jamie Benn, Cole Lind, Jason Robertson, Rope Hintz, Harrison Scott, Justin Ertl, Artem Schlain, Cross Haynes. That is a Dallas, Texas native, which is really, really cool. He'll become the second player, actually, that was born in DFW to suit up in a Dallas Stars uniform for a game. The other was Stefan Nason, who currently has played with the New Jersey Devils over the last couple seasons. So Haynes will suit up. Adam Earn, then you have Tyler Seguin, Matt Duchene, and Mikko Rantanen. On the back end, you have Miro Heiskanen, pretty much the entire defensive core outside of Liam Bichsel. Miro Heiskanen, Niels Lundqvist, Ed Lindell, Trey Taylor. So it'd be really cool to see him play alongside some of the big boys for the Stars. I think this is maybe a tryout, so to speak, just to get his feet wet, playing with some guys that have NHL time and experience in the NHL. I didn't want to be too hasty with some of my predictions on Trey Taylor after the prospect games against Detroit, but I think he has potential to crack an NHL lineup someday in the future. Ilya Lyubushkin and Thomas Harley will also be a part of the defense tonight, and then Jake Oettinger and Ben Cross. So Jake Oettinger expected to see some action against the Wild. So really, really good stuff on the roster. And for those of you going out to the AAC, to get a chance to see some of the big faces and names of Dallas. But here were some of the lines from this morning. You had Jason Robertson with Rope Hintz and Rantanen. So a top line maybe some of you expected to see this season will be out there together tonight. You have Matt Duchene. You got Jamie Benn and Seguin. You have Scott between Earn and Lynn. And you got Schlain, Ertl, and Haynes on the back end. Pretty much what we are accustomed to seeing, or at least what we expect. Lindell, Heiskanen, then you have Thomas Harley, Lundqvist, and then it's Trey Taylor and actually Lyubushkin as your third pair here tonight for Dallas. So some really interesting stuff. So you sort of have your top six, and this is a top six we could see for Dallas on opening night with Hintz, Rantanen, and Robo, Duchene, Ben, Seguin, and then your bottom six is some guys that going to spend maybe more time in the AHL or the ECHL with Cole Lind, who I really enjoyed watching last year in the preseason. Had another really solid season with the Texas Stars down in Cedar Park. Really like his game. And I believe he's had a couple of games in the NHL. Can't remember off the top of my head if he ended up getting in a game last year with Dallas. I know with Scovian and some others did when Dallas got into some trouble. But he was an option for Seattle a couple of years ago. I think is a guy you could rely on in a pinch if Dallas needed him to make a few starts as well. But Artem Schlain, of course, that was a guy that sort of turned heads during the prospect games as well, along with Jackson Feuter, who we'll talk a bit about later on today's show. But a good lineup for Dallas to trot out there tonight, and we'll get a better idea of maybe what Glenn Gulutzan is thinking, and especially up front, since in practices we've seen some different combinations, as Sam Nessler has tweeted out a few times. We've seen Johnston with Rantanen and Hintz, and we've seen some really intriguing combinations. I think it's going to be very, very fluid, as we all know, and we won't really get maybe a true vision of Gulutzan and the coaching staff until opening night. We saw on Monday, so yesterday, we had Steele, Hintz, and Rantanen together, and then Robo, Johnston, Bork. Of course, Bork not going to be in the lineup tonight along with Steele. So they're still going to try some things around, which I like. I think they should exhaust all options right now in the preseason, and see if you can find chemistry with a certain trio that we haven't tried in the past. And as I've said multiple times before, I think Gulutzan is coming in with the approach of being open, more of a collaborative process with Neil Graham and Alain Nazardine, finding a system that is going to both benefit the players and benefit the team as a whole, and try to increase the physicality here up a bit a notch, and just continue to try to ingrain into the team, ingrain into the approach, and really what, I would assume Gulutzan hopes becomes their identity, is being tough to play against and not shying away from contacts, not shying away from finishing checks, but also play the puck on your stick. We talked about some of the key numbers in that preseason game against St. Louis. They outshot the Blues. They won 67% of their draws, and those are all good things. That's sort of been a hallmark of the Stars in the past, outside of the last 3 months of the season last spring, when Dallas was getting heavily outshot every game and taking on water. Under DeBoer, for 95% of his tenure, Stars were out shooting opponents. They were stingy. They were tough to play against, and they could score a bit. They should have no issue scoring with the personnel they have up front, you would think. The depth maybe isn't there, but I think there's a lot at stake for this season for Dallas, because I think if you're Jim Nill, you're hoping some of these young guys will step up this season. Maybe this is a conversation for another day, but I do kind of want to shift to this in a way. When we listened to Nill's thoughts the other day, opening up camp, he thinks a big part of their season is going to be defined by the Maverick Borks, the Lundqvist. Some of these guys are going to have to step up and really be key contributors to the Stars this year. And of course, you make I think a tough decision to some degree to get rid of a coach that had some of the most successful years in the franchise's history. It's a bit of an unknown. As much as we love Gulutzan, or as much as I'm pretty bullish and optimistic on what he can do. He hasn't been unknown. He hasn't won as an NHL head coach for the most part. This is going to be the best opportunity, maybe the last time for him to really grab a hold of a head coaching position in the NHL. This is a last chance for him to really prove himself, and he's got a really good roster around him to make it happen. But at the end of the day, there are still some unknowns, and he's saying all the right stuff. We're hearing all the right stuff, and that's good. But we should be hearing all the right stuff. That's the easy part. But when you get tossed into the fire and the games start coming at you, that's when you got to answer the bell. And I'm really fascinated to see where the Stars team will go, sort of the approach. And the differences with Dallas this year. I hope tonight when I get to watch. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to watch the first preseason game since I was working a game. But tonight, I hope we get a little taste. And it's a preseason. You can't take a ton of stock into systems and whatnot most of the time. But I am intrigued to just see maybe if there is some subtle differences. And then we can talk about it tomorrow on tomorrow's podcast about maybe what we saw, some takeaways. And I'm curious to hear what you guys saw as well against the Blues. If there was something maybe you saw that was a lot different from previous years. Maybe this is something we got to wait a couple weeks in, maybe 5 to 10 games of the regular season to really get a good idea. But I think there will be some things that I'm going to notice. Okay, that seems a bit different. That changed some. Maybe that guy's playing different bit of a style. So obviously, the roster is receiving the words from their head coach, and the players are trying to execute that in some ways too. We'll continue to talk about some line combination shuffling, maybe what intrigues me a bit for the Stars moving forward as we get set for Game 2 of the preseason tonight against the Wild. We'll do that in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel is awesome because it allows you to bet however you like. Player props, building a same-game parlay, even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes the game more exciting. Whether you're watching your team or you're just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup, I had a big comeback last night. I had Zay Flowers and Lamar Jackson. I just squeaked out a win. Very exciting when I was checking the FanDuel app, checking my fantasy app. It just adds a little bit more energy to your Sundays, even your Mondays. Of course, it's not just football. You got hockey coming up. You got baseball. Postseason baseball is right around the corner. All that good stuff for you to get in on the action with FanDuel. So you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. I'm sure plenty of but for some of you that are maybe new to the podcast, so welcome to Locked On Stars. Appreciate your support and making us a part of your day. But I am the play-by-play voice of the Corpus Christi Ice Rays in the North American Hockey League, and every year the league holds a showcase in Minnesota, and all 34 teams this year, they come here. There's 8 rinks in this facility. It's really cool. There's 8 rinks, so much hockey going on, and for about 4 days there's just hockey games one after another. So we got 3 games this weekend, which would be really exciting. We swept last weekend as well over the Brahmas, so it's just been a great start. There's a lot of new faces too. And looking forward to a fun showcase. So sometimes I am very limited on places I can record and such not. So sometimes I have to do the rink. A lot of times I'll be at a hotel just because of travel and such. So I apologize. The quality is not always up to standard or is up to my standard at least as well. But of course, none of you are here to hear me ramble about the ice race. So let's talk some more about some of the line combination. For the most part, I think we have a really good understanding of what the pairings are going to be. At least, I think on opening night, let's just knock on wood, everybody's healthy. On the back end, Miro, Lindell, Harley, Lundqvist. So Lundqvist is going to get an opportunity right off the hop. And we heard that from Glenn Goulston himself last week. That's an opportunity for him. He sees it. He thinks they can be really good players in this league, on this team. So Lundqvist's going to get an opportunity with Harley, and then Bichel, Labushkin. So that will be really cool. Sort of maybe just your big kind of physical, brute third pair for Dallas with Bichel and Labushkin. That seems to be pretty steady. They haven't really veered from that, at least from what I've been able to see over the last handful of days of practice. Now up front, well, they got a lot of forwards they're trying to get in, trying to get into games. I'm sure we'll have a round of cuts here by the end of the week as well. So I don't know how much stock you can put into all of these. Of course, that first day practice, what was it on Saturday or Friday? If we go back and we look at some of the lines, we saw Johnston, I believe it was Rantanen and Hintz. I'm gonna have to go back to it and find it exactly. But they've tried a lot. And even the other day, we saw Steele up there, which again I like. I think Steele for the most part deserves a chance to be elevated in the lineup. Does he need to be in the top 6? I don't know. If I'm Dallas, you probably want him on your third line just to to kind of extend that depth. We talked about the left side being a bit kind of, boring or not being very sexy when you got Ben, Robo, and then Steele's kind of your third line. You got Beck as well. But we saw Ben, Johnston, and Rantanen. That was the combination that we saw on day one, which, again, I don't know if it's I don't know if that's a trio that's going to skate very well, and will that in turn struggle for them to score offensively? But I can see where they're coming from, because Johnson's a bit of a playmaker. You put some big power forwards around him. I just don't know if Ben's going to have the juice to keep up with a line like that too at this stage of his career. And look, we saw it towards the end of last year. He was playing 12 minutes a night. And I mean, you're going to be asking him now in his mid-30s to try to play in a top six role. I just don't know if that's beneficial for him. But maybe putting him with some younger guys will inject some life back into him. We've seen that before. We've seen that other places. It's not all just about putting, Robo, Hintz, and Johnston together and letting go, and then you put your old guys down the lineup. We've seen in past, sometimes you get two guys that are great together, like a Robo and a Hintz, and you just got to find a piece. It doesn't need to be a Mikko Rantanen, a guy that's considered, a top 10 player in the NHL. Sometimes you just need a nice complement piece. And maybe even it's a guy like Blackwell, right? They did that with Blackwell in New York when they played him with Panarin. Like, it doesn't need to be a superstar or a guy that we feel is elite at his position. Sometimes just finding a good piece and a guy that has a skill set maybe the others don't, and they can thrive together. So that's why I'm really intrigued. Like, I think Hintz, Robo, if you threw a Steele up there on the right side, maybe that's something that could work. Maybe not. Maybe I'm thinking too hard about this. But it's not about finding that Rantanen to play along with them all the time. And Joe Pavelski would, of course, a bit of a big name, but wasn't the same type of player he was when he was, with San Jose the 5 years prior. He was a bit different. He had to adapt, change his game a bit, and he was still able to stick with them. And that's why I won't completely discount Ben playing up top or playing in a top six role, because, we saw Pavelski do it, and he played with Hintz. It was flying. And Robo's not a great skater. That's why I won't completely scoff at the fact that Ben may get an opportunity, because we've seen, Pavelski thrive in a role like that. And I'm not going to put it past the Stars to find a way to make it work. And a fun episode with other Central Division Locked On podcast networks. We did an episode with Colorado and the Wild in Winnipeg, and Chris over at Locked On Avalanche I think had a good point where, as someone that does this podcast every day, I think a lot of times we look at the nitty gritty. We always find the things to complain about. Sometimes we got to step back and be a bit more positive at times. And Chris, mentioned he thinks the Stars can be one of the best teams in the league. He may be wrong. He may be right, but he also said sometimes the Stars just figure it out. And I think that's true. They do figure it out. Look at the last couple of years, all the complaints especially I was making about this defense, and man, the roster's not as good as maybe it was prior. Especially after that year when the Dumba Labushkin signings, or I guess it was just last summer, feels like a lifetime ago. This team got worse, and then they end up being back in the Western Conference Finals. Although, Dumba Labushkin didn't really work because they were healthy scratches. So maybe in the end I was kind of right, but they still won a lot of games. They still were the top of the Central, and they still made an appearance. They didn't get the job done at the end of the day. Still a bust of a season. I think that's fair to say. But they do figure it out. And now I think there's maybe more unknowns, but also I think more to some. There are some unknowns with your head coach, but the roster still really good. And some guys can take some big steps with Bork. You got Lundqvist. You got Foxa back. You got Beck. Steele, right? The list goes on and on of guys that can hopefully do some big things. And looking forward to tonight. Seeing Branson and Hintz and Robo again together, let's face it, they're probably going to look like one of the better lines in the game. They should they should be their best players tonight. From what I saw from Minnesota, they weren't sending any of the big boys down. From what I recall, there's some fun prospects to look at, but nobody really of status. I would say that the Wild are traveling down to the AAC here tonight. But there you go. Those are just some of my thoughts on the lineup as a whole. There's just so many different rabbit holes I think we could go down, and why I think it is important for Dallas to just exhaust all options. It may not be just the obvious, these three guys are great, put them together. Find somebody that complements them, that has a different skill set, that, isn't a top 6 forward, but can, in a certain role, can be productive. And I think that's what Gingols is going to try to do. I think it's maybe what we've seen a bit here in the first, 5-6 days of practice in training camp. Okay, some exciting news actually today was announced. A certain player from the NHL Prospect Games actually ended up signing an entry-level contract with the Dallas Stars. So we'll tell you more about that in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. If we don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch can do the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes. You can see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and you can finally feel like you're in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. They can also help you identify where maybe you're not saving as much as you thought. Inefficient investment allocation, discover forgotten 401ks from past jobs, and to help you maximize your investments. You can review your finances and feel like you're in control, and maybe you can start saving a bit more, save up for that big trip you want to take with your partner or your family. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. Jackson Feuter, who was a member of the Dallas Stars Prospect Games against the Detroit Red Wings, just over a week ago now, has signed an entry-level contract, a 3-year entry-level contract with the Dallas Stars. So this is awesome to see. He's 19 years of age. He's a really cool story as well. He plays. He actually played in the equivalent, I would say, of the NAHL. In BC, British Columbia. So he played in the BCHL for a number of seasons before making an appearance in the Western Hockey League last year with the Red Deer Rebels. He totaled 26 points in 46 regular season games. His 91 penalty minutes with Red Deer led all WHL rookies and ranked second on his team. It also says he was honored with the Red Deer's Darcy Robertson Award, which is given out to the team's most underrated player each year. He's 6 foot, 171 pounds. He scored a couple beautiful goals during the Prospect Games, had an assist as well. I spent 5 seasons in the BCHL with the River Kings and Cranbrook Bucks. Prior to making his WHL debut, he totaled 37 points in 76 regular BCHL games, setting career highs in 2022-23 with 11 assists and 15 points. He's a Cold Lake, Alberta native. He signs with the Stars here today, which is really, really cool. And you don't see a lot of guys that come from the BCHL and really even in the NHL that, make it all the way. And at least, even an entry-level contract is awesome to see, and kudos for him. And that's what the Prospect Games, in a lot of ways, are for some guys. It's not about them maybe cracking an NHL lineup. That maybe be years away. For some of the guys, some of the Stars draft picks, that is, especially some of the high draft picks, like your expectations are for them to at some point contribute to the Dallas Stars. But it does give free agents the opportunity to come in, play some games. If they impress, then they can get signed. And they get an opportunity to play some professional hockey. So I think that's just really, really cool a guy that, he impressed in those 2 games, and he gets rewarded for it. And that's what you want to see. So credit to Fuder for playing well. Credit to the Stars for noticing it and being able to get a deal done. So that's just awesome to see. Really, really cool stories over the last couple days. And tonight you have Haynes, that's a DFW-born guy that's going to suit up in a Stars sweater. I imagine that's going to be really, really cool for him. So look forward to kind of seeing that, see how he plays. So a lot of cool stuff coming out of Big D here today. But that's all I got for you on today's episode of Locked On. Just getting you prepared for this preseason game tonight. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll break it down. Hopefully have some fun things to talk about as we get to see some of the big boys in the lineup. For those of you that are interested in fantasy hockey, I just did my draft the other day. Locked On has a fantasy hockey podcast for you to listen. If you want to make it part of your normal routine, Steele Roden and Philip Livingstone provide daily fantasy tips to give you the edge over your league mates, all while making you a smarter hockey fan. You can find the Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Really, really excited for my fantasy team this year as well. So may have to chat about that a bit here over the next couple of weeks. But hey, Stars fans, thank you as always for love and support. For those of you that are new, maybe haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, never miss an episode. Drop a comment in the comment section. I love reading through those, and looking forward to another great episode tomorrow and continue to finish off this week here of Locked On Stars. Have a great day, Stars fans, and we'll see you tomorrow. So long.